So yesterday we looked at the rise of Islam, the religion, and of the state that formed to protect it, the Arab Empire, also sometimes called the Islamic Empire, both founded by Muhammad in the Arabian Peninsula. Today we are going to look at how and why both the state and the religion expanded quite as fast as they did. And here's a great map for you to pause the video and just have a close look at, because it's really quite astounding. In orange, the dark orange, you have the extent of the Islamic world when Muhammad was alive. In like yellowish orange, you have territory added to it by the first 4 leaders of the caliphate after Muhammad. And then in green, an extra layer. Note that it slips into Spain and Europe. We have territory added by the next caliphate. That is huge spread, very fast, for a little tiny idea that began in a desert, in a place where civilization in terms of like Rome or Persia just did not exist. So this demands us asking why. Here's a great map too. Here you can see the spread over time. Look at the years. I think I'm going to try to let this map run a couple of times so you can really get a sense of how fast this all happened. We already know some things from our studies of history and geography that can help explain what we're seeing on the map, this really, really fast spread of an empire and an idea along with it. Let's take the religion first, right? We know that religions spread when they have a universal message, so they're open to anybody, when they appeal to the poor, with merchants and traders traveling along long-distance trade routes, they spread the idea with them. And we know that when religions become state religions, when they become the main unifying ideology of the state, they spread with the borders of that state. So we can already tell that the spread of the Arab Empire will necessarily cause the spread of this religion. We also know that the 5 pillars of Islam includes particular focus on giving charity to the poor and taking care of, the lesser than. And so the appeal to the poor and the outcasts of society here is pretty clear. Turning to the spread of the empire, how did these people from the middle of nowhere conquer so much so fast? Well, we know that there was a power vacuum in North Africa, fall of Rome. And when there's a power vacuum, there's room to grow. We also know that culturally Arabians were nomadic. And what do we know about nomads? They're good at moving around. They're fast. They're good on horseback. And they're good at surviving difficult terrain in difficult circumstances. I've also told you the end of the story, right? This empire is going to experience a golden age, the likes of which had not existed in this part of the world. And we know that golden ages tend to be caused by stable empires who can bring in money and protect things, long distance trade, and especially policies of tolerance. So let's see how much of we know maps onto this particular story of the spread of the Arab Empire and Islam along with it. If you need a refresher about the key beliefs and diffusion of Islam, please pause the slide here and review these notes from Unit 2. And I forgot to show you this slide yesterday, but I think one of the fascinating things about Islam is the continuity that just exists in Mecca, which is still a city, right? We talked about the Kaaba, that shrine where many people came to worship their many gods, and the shrine was like the economic lifeblood of Mecca in the time of Muhammad. That same shrine, the Kaaba, is a holy site for Muslims now, and people continue to make pilgrimages to see it year after year, which you can see on the pictures. So that's pretty neat. Also, any excuse to show you the beautiful mosques from all around the world I will take, so here they are. But let's look at this map. Islam, like most ideas, spread through trade and conquest, which made the Arab Empire rich and ideologically unified, which led to a golden age. The language of the Quran is Arabic. So if you're Muslim, you learn Arabic, and that unified language helped unite the empire as it spread. And if you look at the map, look at all of the trade that crisscrossed this Arab empire. Not only is this a great way for people who believe in a religion to spread those beliefs to others as they encounter them, but it created this interesting feedback loop where traders from other parts of the world saw the success of Islamic traders and of the Arab Empire generally, and they began to buy into this idea that their religious belief had something to do with it. So, the success of the Arab Empire and the success of Islam are kind of in a feedback loop. They feed into each other. Notably, the Arab Empire spread into Spain. We'll get to that when we look at the Golden Age, specifically of Cordoba, but just to kind of put that in your minds for now. And again, another map. So, how did this happen, right? One of the things that stands out about the Arab Empire is the speed at which it expanded. And here's another fantastic book on the topic that I will read you a little portion of. The word most associated with the Arab conquests by Western scholars is speed. The speed of the Arab expansion is staggering, says one. Another speaks of its near miraculous speed, like a human tsunami speeding outwards. This reflects the assumptions that the Arab conquests were over and done with in a few short years. That wasn't quite the case, but they did expand really, really fast. The massive compression of the duration of the conquests means that the process by which they were achieved is lost. The Arabs' victories were certainly stunning, and their progress was much faster than that of settled powers like the Romans, but it's comparable with armies comprising a high proportion of nomads. Later we'll learn about the Mongols, but the Mongols covered a larger area in just 70 years, also a nomadic people. So, what is it about nomads and speed of conquest? Well, here's proof that they were successful. The Islamic Empire after Muhammad is colored in on this map in blues and purples. So, the dark blue bit was conquered in just under 100 years, which is, pretty fast for that time. And again, it includes Spain. Trade is another part of the story. Here we have like a slightly different map. This is not a political map of the spread of the empire. This is a map showing the extent of Muslim influence, which is outlined in red. And note that the extent of Muslim influence, like the religion, not the state, stretches farther than the empire itself. So like that, we can account with trade. So how did this happen? Here's where you should take notes. The Arab Empire was able to expand fast and become successful because Arab armies, especially on horseback, were really effective. And that's something that they have in common with the Mongols and with most nomadic groups that successfully conquer large areas: speed on horseback. Second, use of a common language, Arabic, led to unity and easier communication. All Muslims must learn Arabic so they can read the Quran, the Islamic holy book. This common language helped unite many different ethnic groups within the Islamic Empire, which made it strong, and it made it easier to exchange knowledge and ideas. Third, relative tolerance of conquered people's cultures. Jews and Christians that were conquered could keep their religions, for example, meant less resistance and the ability to make use of conquered peoples to strengthen the empire instead of just fighting them the whole time. This is something that will set the Arab Empire apart from the European civilizations that were developing at the same time, which we'll see in the next unit. Then fourth, trade. Trade diffused the idea that made the Arab Empire strong, Islam, but it also brought in a lot of money. And money buys protection. It buys infrastructure, specialized skills, strong empire. Under the Umayyad dynasty of caliphs, that's not a specific name that you necessarily need to remember, the empire stretched across 3 continents. So controlling most of the Middle East, North Africa, and the Iberian Peninsula, which means Spain and Portugal in Europe. Here's a bigger map of that. So that was the state expansion story. We're going to look a little bit more at the expansion of Islam as an idea and quite how much money was coming into the Arab Empire next time when we start looking at the specific trade routes that led to the success of both the idea and the state, trans-Saharan trade routes and the Indian Ocean trade.